Can you hear me? You just have to go back and look for it live. Hey guys, welcome back, or I can be welcome back. The visual dropped it on YouTube, so I had to reload our live class. We're going to get started for our YIN class in just a little bit. I'm going to give it another minute or so, just because I have to let people find us who were following along live. So I can see that some people have already joined. If you want to live chat and just let me know that you're there. It's now 9 o'clock Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, and we're just going to get started in one more minute. Give it a chance for people to find us. We had to reload this live YouTube setting. I love the internet, I gotta tell you. The playlist for today, if you want to get the playlist, it's really nice to do a yin class with a yummy playlist, and I've curated it for this class. So if you want to follow along, it's on Spotify, and the Spotify handle that I go by is my friend Simone. And it's today's date. Yin. Sunday, May 31st. Oh my God. I'm getting into June tomorrow. And for those that are with us, making sure that you have one block for practice. We're going to get started. So I'm going to invite you to take a seat as I'm sitting. You can do it facing the top of your mat. And you can adjust so that you really feel your sit bones grounded for the mat. And just laying your hands on your knees with palms facing up. Take a big breath in through the nose. And just a light tuck of the chin. Exhale, close the eyes. Feel a welcomed breath in through the nose, running the length of your spine, using your spine almost as though you'd use your lungs. And feel a length of exhale out the nose, down or up the spine. Keep the eyes closed, or you can start your playlist now. I'm going to run it. As you settle into the music, if you've chosen that option for your practice today, maybe close your eyes back up again. And just remembering as we get into our practice this morning, or if you're on the East Coast this afternoon, or wherever you may be, if you're doing this later, this idea of surrendering to a more quiet place in your body. So allowing that we're going to take our time. There's not going to be these big gestures of movement. And in that time, what we're going to afford ourselves is a ton of space, a kind of space for a real reflection that is our own, that isn't influenced by any kind of mayhem in and around our world. Take a deep breath in through the nose and sigh it out, breath out, and open the eyes. Tense your fingers behind your bum, your hips. And you might need to make this choice, or it might already be there. You're going to cross the right ankle, right calf in front of the left shin, back to Sukhasana sit. You're going to stretch your arms up tall, breathe in. And then bring the right arm underneath the left. Make your eagle arms and play with how you want these eagle arms to feel in your body. You could lift the elbows a little higher. That's going to activate something. You could settle them down a little lower, just as long as you keep them off your chest. You could press your left elbow down and kind of reach a little bit of your right elbow up. And then practice breathing in and out through the nose as you maybe draw the shoulder blades a little closer together to elongate your spine and slide the shoulder blades down the length of the spine. And full breath in as we open through that back body, full breath out. You're going to take your arms up and stretch through the fingernails, fingertips, breathe in. You're going to keep your right arm up and tap your left fingertips down, up and over to the left, opening the right side. Settling into that little bit of effort that has you reaching, but surrendering to that space that opens the right side and making it more peaceful, more still. Come back up through the arm, breathe in. And tap your right hand down to your left knee. Walk your left hand more behind, tent your fingers, and just do a little twist with a really long spine. Try not to look beyond the capability of the twist. So keeping your chin and your gaze more in neutral, following the line of the torso to twist. And coming out of that twist, breathe in. And then exhale, tense your fingers behind and switch out the legs. Left calf in front of the right shin. Take your sit bones to ground and your arms go high. Breathe in. And then exhale, slow gestures, left arm underneath the right, eagle arms. Now, if you can't twist tie the arms, you can hug and wrap your fingertips to the back body into the pockets of the shoulder blades. And play with the sense of opening this. Do your elbows go a little low? Do they go a little high? But keep the length of the spine at least and the elbows off the chest. Might be a little sweet gesture to draw the shoulder blades more closer together. You'll feel the spine pipe up in length. You might draw the shoulder blades down the length of the back body towards your waistband. 2 more breaths here. Release the arms, but head them overhead. Slow gestures, slow moves. Breathe in. And keep the left arm high. Tap the right fingertips down, up and over towards the right so your left side gets an opening. Use a little bit of yang. That's known as effort in this practice. Use a little bit of that effort to ground your left sit bone so it doesn't take flight as you stretch your left side open. Imagine these pockets of space on your left side are like spaces opening up to breath, breathing in and out through the nose. Come back up, breathe in, and then tap your left hand down to your right knee. Walk your right fingertips further behind, tent them up, and twist through. But try and keep it a little more neutral through the gaze and through the chin. So you're not just trying to look back over that right shoulder. And just like we're aware to all that we're carrying around, you might be aware to how that carrying around, whether it's emotional, whether it's to-do lists, where is it in the pockets of space of this twist, and how can you tender up through a breath in and breath out? And come out of the twist, breathe in, and set your hands down for a tall sit, sit bones down, hands onto the knees, exhale here. You're gonna make sure to face the front of your mat if you're not already doing that, and come into a tabletop with your block nearby. Stack your wrists underneath your shoulders. Look your fingertips straight ahead and make an L or reversed L through the index and thumb. Move through a couple cat cows. We start with the cows. They should be called cows, cats. Arch the spine, breathe in. Out of that arch, pull your navel in, tuck your chin in towards your collar space, and press through the hands and knees to round out. Do 2 more. Your inhale is to drop your belly down, cow your pose through an arched spine. The gaze is neutral, straight ahead. Your exhale is to round your spine. Come to a flat back out of the cat pose and rounded spine. Curl your toes under here. Take a deep breath in to walk your fingertips to the left off your mat. Fingertips so you start to feel that right side stretch. And then send your bum towards your heels, even if they don't touch. And it may be the case here that you can put your forehead to the mat. And you're going to breathe into what's opening in your feet by your toes curled under and the plantar fascia of your feet exposed and stretching out. You're going to breathe into the reach of the fingertips, but then settle down the hands for a little less to do. And just feel the right side body negotiate space and breath in and out. And as you travel the breath in, weaving it through your structure, your torso, your upper body, especially on that right side. Weave in and out, weave in and out, move through. Notice if you can part your upper and lower jaw and relax the state of the tongue inside of the mouth. Notice if you can let weight surrender into the forehead onto your mat. A kind of drooping through the head, through the arms, the elbows, the heart. And finding 2 more breaths here. Peek your head up. Kind of look towards the fingertips. Bring your bum back up away from your heels. Walk your hands in towards that tabletop. Uncurl your toes so your shoelaces are to the mat. And kick your right arm high to breathe in. And out of that, thread it underneath your left armpit. Point your right fingertips to about 11 o'clock and lie your cheek, your outer right arm and shoulder down to the mat. So slightly kind of different offering through the right side, but still with that right side body. And finding the space that you can balance here, you might wrap your left arm behind. It's an add-on that doesn't need to happen, especially if it starts to compromise how you breathe for your body. A lot of the time, as you get deeper into a yin-like stretch, it starts to manifest a kind of heat in the body, almost like you've got a heating pad across your back body and right side. So all to say that that sensation isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just sensation to look to breathe through and to notice how you're you're shifting things in your body, and your body is having its moment to respond. Take 2 more breaths here. If you've wrapped your left arm behind, you want to unwrap it and place your left palm down to help yourself out of this. I like to kick that right arm back up to where he came from. Reach, breathe in. And put the hand down into a tabletop, breathe out. As a little bit of a rebound offering and getting into the yang of our pose, curl your toes under and pick up your bum and find a little bit of a down dog stretch. And there's nothing beyond feeling that you need to look for from this down dog stretch. You can even soften through the legs quite a bit. Walking your hands to your feet, and we'll just have a nice little forward fold at what is the back of your mat. Again, you bend your legs as much as it gives you freedom through your lower back, through your hamstrings, and also your hips. And you let go of it needing to look like my forward fold or someone else's that you saw once that seemed a little perfect. I have a lot of give in forward folds so I can get my hands flat to the floor, but you might be dangling and hanging heavy for a beat. Stay with it. Try and let your head go for one more breath in and out. Walk your hands back to a downward face dog. Feel the kind of crawl in slow. And then bend your legs pretty deeply so you're hovering your knees in a tabletop hover. Take an inhale as you do that, and then travel the knees down safely to exhale. Your toes should still be curled under from your downward face dog. And as you do that, you're going to slowly, through an inhale, walk your hands off to the right and towards off the mat. Finding a little reach of fingertips pointing to about 2 or 3 o'clock. And as you exhale, settling your hips down towards your heels and maybe tucking your chin to lay your forehead down. A couple things about this shape that I'm asking you to be in. It may be the case that curling your toes under for the duration of this pose doesn't work for you. You can always bring your shoelaces to the mat. I like a little bit of an offering through the backs of my feet. And so that's why I put the toes curled under. Now, as you open a lot through your left side, try and notice if there's any compression through the right hip crease. You might be able to make adjustments to get out of that, especially if it's drawing your attention away from the space and the breath that you can provide to the left side body. And trying to breathe in a way that you allow your belly to become Buddha-like in its expression of an inhale. Trying to let go so much of any structure in the body that you surrender to this ease of melting into the floor and onto your mat. And take 2 more breaths for yourself. Out of that second exhale, you're just kind of lifting your head, peeping forward, and then maybe pressing into your toes or your shoelaces, head your bum back up off the heels. And walk back to a tabletop and pause there. You can uncurl your toes, bring your shoelaces to the mat, rest that space of the feet opening up, and then kick your left arm high. Explore that for a breath in. And then thread it through underneath the right armpit. Put it on an angle. So the left fingertips kind of point to 2 or 3 o'clock. And there's a big giant opening that's gone a little deeper from our last shape into this shape and twist on our left side. And you might adjust your knees. Feel for where you can get more bang for your buck in the twist. You might wrap your right fingertips behind your back body towards your left hip crease. Try and make it so that there's this kind of melting body into this space of the mat. Anything that's making contact with the floor can let go into the floor. So it's not that you push yourself into a stance of holding yourself up, but it's that you trust the support of your mat and the floor. It has you to let go into. Kind of metaphor for maybe, just maybe, how we could approach our lives. And again, I don't know about you, but for me, the sensation of heat across my back body is a very real sensation. One that I'm kind of curious about. It's okay if it kind of turns a flick or a switch on, right? If you can just let go of needing to get to somewhere and be with here. 2 more breaths. If you've got your right hand wrapped behind your back body into the left hip crease, unwrap and put the right palm down on the ground or mat, somewhere that you can lift your torso out of this. Kick your left arm back up to where he started. And then just step down. You're in your tabletop with your shoelaces to the mat. I'm going to invite you to get to down dog a little differently this way. Arch the spine as you press your shoelaces and hands down. Breathe in. Keep the arch of the spine. Press into the shoelaces. Start to hover your knees off the ground and up. Curl over your toes, down dog. And there's a down dog that a lot of us know very well from our vinyasa practice. I want you to soften a bit. Soften in the knees. Soften in the spirit. Soften in the jaw. Soften in the eyes and let the head go. In down dog, step your feet, not quite mat width distance, but maybe just shy of that. A little wider, so there's about 2.5 feet between the toes. Walk your hands towards your toes, back of the mat. Another forward fold. Bend the legs pretty distinctly here to soften into the Buddha belly, the hips and lower back as you forward fold. In a way that I like to approach this yin-like forward fold, known as dangling, is that if you could imagine losing all the muscle in your body for just a beat, if you could imagine that the structure of your skull and the gestures in your face and expression are so soft that, yeah, you might even kind of drool here a little bit. Could you let go to that extent for 3 more breaths? Lift the head a little bit out of those 2 breaths. Look ahead to the length of your mat. Walk back to downward face dog. Slow gestures here from down dog. Breathe in. Bend the legs till you hover the knees away from the mat in a hovering tabletop. Take another inhale here as you tug the belly in. Put the knees down to exhale. Bring the toes together, heels slightly away, or maybe the heels are touching and the knees go wider here. And then bring the bum back towards the heels in Balasana, child's pose. As a real sweet offering in child's pose, I want you to notice your arms, my arms, the softening of the elbows. So it's almost as if you're kind of cactusing the arms. And the softening of the elbows gives you a ton of space in your shoulders. And then let your belly go. Us ladies just need to let it go. No need to tuck in or sit up straight kind of vibe. Just be a little messy Buddha like belly here in this child's pose. And then do a little bit of work here as you breathe in to the right shoulder blade. Imagine that it kind of takes a bit of flight. That even though it's this really solid structure, could it fill up with its own pocket of air like a balloon? And breathing out from that pocket of air. And then shift it to the left shoulder blade. Balloon. Balloon fill up of air. Radiating more space around the whole of that left shoulder. And exhaling from that space. If you want to go a little deeper, you can slide your hands towards the back of the mat to frame the knees. And you'll interlock your hands behind you. Heels of the hands get close together on the base and center of your spine. And then lengthen your arms as you squeeze the heels of the hands together. Knuckles pointing up towards the sky as you rinse open the shoulders. And finding maybe a little more knuckles reaching up and over towards the head to rinse a little more. Take 2 more breaths, whether you're in the first version of child's pose or whether you've added on interlocked hands. And out of that second exhale, if your interlocked hands, resting them to the lower back where they started, separating the interlocked hands. And if you're in the first stage of child's pose with your hands out in front, all of us joining up there. And just pressing into the knees, pressing forward through the hips and pelvis, coming into a tabletop and stepping the knees hip width distance so the feet do the same. Take a deep breath in here. Flat back, but now you're going to round the spine to exhale and just kind of feedback where we just were through our cat pose. Come back into a flat back, breathe in, look straight ahead, neutral chin, no need to look up. Exhale, step the forearms down on the ground. Slide one leg at a time back till you get the belly kind of baking down on the ground and you set up for Sphinx pose. Sphinx pose is a nice offering for the back body. Looking a little similar to what we do in our yang practice around a baby cobra or moving in towards an upward face dog. You want to stack the elbows underneath the shoulders so there's a straight line down from shoulders to elbows. You want to rest the belly heavy like Buddha style so that you feel that contact of the navel belly button to your mat. And for me, I need a little bit of space in my lower back so I can get a little wider in the legs, resting the shoelaces to the mat, neutralize the chin to look straight ahead. If you're using any kind of effort whatsoever, it's in the elbows, tripoding the heart up. Notice what your fingertips or the whole expression of your hand is doing. Get away of doing any action in the fingers, any reaching or fisting. And if those hands feel like they're ready to let go and they're resting to the mat, see if you might do the same in the expression of the face and in the jaw. Maybe even close your eyes so you get really steady with the richness of your breath in and out through the nose. And you'll notice in this shape that the bolder the breath is, the more it starts to interact our with our posture and the sensation derived from this posture. So when you go for that big breath, it's completely natural that you'll feel a little more richness in the sensation of the lower back. I'm going to stay for about 5 more breaths. In those 5 breaths, you might deepen what you're doing here. To go a little deeper, you might bend the legs. You can keep your feet floppy, or you can even go deeper with a flex in the feet. Remember, you're not pushing your energy away from the floor or the mat, but you're surrendering to the support of your mat. It has you to let go into. And 2 more breaths. The legs are bent and the feet are away from the floor. Place the feet down slow. And then come down off your forearms and heart to the floor and layer your hands so that you can put your forehead onto your hands and also bend left leg, knee up, inner thigh resting to the mat in a belly pigeon. Let your body rest completely for at least breaths. We're going to return into the area of the back body. Maybe taking that previous posture of Sphinx pose a little deeper. With your forehead to your hand, slide your left leg long. So you come back to neutral in the legs, belly shavasana. Keep your head up off your hands and come right back onto the forearms, elbows underneath. Underneath those shoulders. Now you might be willing to get back to where you were. Maybe it's a bend of the legs. Maybe you weren't flexing and you want to explore flexing the feet. Or maybe it's the legs long and the legs a little wider. And a little bit of fanning out the hands, not too much. But as you do that, you could press through the hands and lift off into seal pose. Next stage off of Sphinx. A little less would be with hands further away. A little more would be with hands closer to your belly, as I just did. Finding the spot where you can breathe and enjoy the stillness of this pose. We're going to be here for 10 breaths. The belly is always heavy in Sphinx or Seal. You're not tugging the navel in. You're letting go. It's a little bit of a mess into the belly. Can you be a little messy and let that mess be supported by your mat once again? Move through your 2 more breaths with you deciding to keep your legs, your thighs, your glutes soft. If you're on your hands for Seal, you bend one arm at a time to come to the forearms for Sphinx. From forearms of Sphinx, you layer your hands again. You bring your forehead down to your hands. And you bend that right leg. And slide the knee up more level with your hips, inner right thigh resting to that. This gesture of a bent leg in belly shavasana is a really nice kind of smoothing out in the lower back. So it should feel really sweet to get here. I want you to move through 3 more breaths. But use a little bit of that imagination of ours. And really let it seem as though the lung capacity of these next 3 breaths is resting in your lower spine. So that's the nugget of space you breathe in and out and through. You can slide your leg back long out of those 3 breaths. You can rest both set of shoelaces to the mat. And you can peep your head up. Put your hands underneath your shoulders with your head and your heart a little up. Press into tabletop. Breathe in. Really important here. Bring the knees together to kiss in tabletop. Breathe out. Take a deep inhale here. And with the kiss of the knees, now send your bum back, back, and back until they get pretty close or kiss the heels. So you're in a child's pose with your knees and feet together, which creates a sensation of rounding the spine out. And you go with the sensation of rounding the spine out. I like to almost walk my hairline onto the mat so that it's almost as my gaze, my lips, and a little bit of my forehead faces my knees. Taking the rounding shell-like spine a little further into the gesture of opening up this rounded spine after our Sphinx and seal. And it should feel like a bit of a relief to get into this rounded space of the spine. And what you can do is walk your breath into the pockets of vertebrae, up and down, down and up. And what we want to do here, as we stay still in the shape, is let any kind of mobility that shows up or wants to show up be in the life of that breath. So you can feel as you generate a big inhale, how it stretches your back body long and wide and makes room for the breath to come in and support the shape here. So don't be afraid to stretch your spine, your torso, long and wide. Take 2 more breaths in and out through the nose, long and wide breaths. Before you shift out of this, just being aware of what is really contacting the mat, the ground. Whether in a standing pose, whether in a yang practice, find the grounding that you can when it's applicable and ground out of that to root to rise perhaps. So feel your shins and knees and shoelaces to the mat. Push a little bit to the mat so that you can roll up with a sense of grounding. Roll up slow. The head should roll up last as you sit your bum to heels, eventually lengthen in the spine. Eventually untuck the chin and find a taller version of you. Take a deep breath in here in your sit of Virasana, knees, shins, and shoelaces to the mat. And deep breath out. Walk your hands forward. Keep your shoelaces to the mat, perhaps, as you find your tabletop. Arch your spine for cow pose, shoelaces down, breathe in. Keep your arch, press into the shoelaces, hover your knees off, and roll over the toes, down dog. Step your feet about hip width distance. Walk your hands to feet, back of the mat again. One more time of visiting this forward fold. Each time you've come here, can you notice something that's shifted in the way of making this more available to you? I'm going to opt for more available because I find it really difficult to believe that we're any less available to these folds. And so just noticing even the slightest little bit of give. A little bit of repetition in the practice, making things even just slightest little give more available to you. Just for a beat, take your hands to your shins. Keep your head heavy. Walk your hands up your shins towards your knees, past your knees, up your thighs, kind of rolling up slow like you did from that rounded back child's pose to stand on your feet. Ooh. Take a stand for yourself. What is touching the floor is your roots. Ground down. Stretch your arms up to breathe in. I'm going to ask you to interlock your hands behind your head and keep your elbows mostly wide, but not pinch the shoulders wide. You're finding just enough strength in the thighs to ground, and then slowly start to arch your spine the way you've been doing on your belly, in your tabletop, as you press your head to hands to be on your feet for just a beat of a real open heart back bend. And then really take advantage of the scope of breath here. Big sweeping inhales. Big exhales. Pull a little bit of your navel in to get your heart back up to neutral. Taking the arch of the spine. Putting the hands on the hips. Micro bending the legs. Breathe in. And fold slow, mostly through the length of the spine. Getting into the sweetness of mobility of your back body. When you're mostly folded and you're kind of squeezing your hands in between the hip creases, put the hands down to the floor, walk back to downward face dog. Take a full breath in. Bend the legs, hover the knees, hover tabletop, breath out, pause there. Draw your belly in just a bit, look forward to the top of the mat, breathe in. Put the knees down, slow, breathe out. Reach for your block. You're going to put your block in between the hands of your tabletop. Your thumbs should be able to make contact with it. And as you look down to your block, you're looking at a horizontal lower setting of your block to the mat. Step one forearm at a time with a bit of space in between the forearms. So you're kind of stepping your forearms almost to the edge sides of the block. And you're resting your hands out in front of the block. step one knee at a time further back to lengthen the space between the knees and the elbows. And say a kind of step or half a step. Breathe in here. You're looking forward to the fingertips. Breathe out to bring the bum back, to tuck the head in between the arms, and to hang the heart pretty heavy. Anahastasana, melted heart. It helps to be able to rest the forehead on the ground. Take any kind of muscling into this out of this. And this is a super intense pose. You're into the lats, you're into the armpits, you're into the upper back body and shoulders. And sometimes it can play a little bit with our sense of fear and what we think is available in our body. Sensation and stretch is going to be a kind of intensity that is okay to welcome. But any focused, sharp pain is something you're going to want to adjust out of. Just distinguishing between a bit of shifting and growing versus danger zone. And sometimes, more often than not, just like life, a steady breath in and a steady breath out will give you all the insight you'll need. Not here for much longer, just about 3 more breaths. Keep the jaw parted and the softness in the hands recording into the rest of your body for that letting go of ease, that letting go into that space where you don't have to fight quite as much. And first thing you'll want to do is lift your head out of the pocket of your arms and shift your hips forward a bit to get out of the shoulders and lats. And one hand at a time, super slow, step up to frame the block into tabletop again. Walk your hands towards your knees. Curl your toes under here and do one little sweep more of a pose. Toes curled under so that you can roll your knees up. Step your feet wide and wider. Point your toes out and your heels inward and find a Malasana squat where you cave the heart and head down and round out. So in a real yang-like gesture of this pose, you would try for lifting the space of the heart and lengthening the back body. But here today, you're just surrendering into kind of a hunchback version of your Malasana squat. It may be that you really notice what opens into the neck body to let go and make the head for heavy. Take about 2 more breaths before you decide to round out of this, lifting the head, lifting the heart. Walking the hands forward out of this to come back onto the knees. To get anything that might be on your mat, like a prop, out of the way. And to lie down in that final resting offering of Shavasana. Staying with it. As you find your way into this final offering of Shavasana, allow yourself to feel pretty deeply and significantly for how your back body meets your mat. And it's totally normal that it's the case that there are all these pockets of the back body that don't actually meet the mat, that are still holding space away. And it actually may be the case that the longer you lie with this, the more you'll see to unravel it, so to speak. The more you'll feel for how body tenderly weights down to the mat. And the rule of thumb with Shavasana is that you really want to get curious about it and you want to practice it as much as you might give your will over to any shape, especially the ones that have your attention a little more. So if you're all about the arm balance, or you're all about the warrior twos, or powering through your chaturangas, is there a similar power that you can give over to your Shavasana? To the simplicity of stilling it down on your mat. And quieting your body to the shape so that it opens up in a way to a deeper conversation around where you're at, what you need, and perhaps who you are. I'm wishing you a beautiful rest of the day or evening whenever you find this. For those that are with me right now, please, please, please take care of yourself and enjoy your Sunday. And please honor this final shape for just a little bit longer. Lots of love. Namaste.